Blizzard just revealed that there will be support hero reworks for Overwatch 2. What's up, guys? It's me, Coach Mills, and we're going to be breaking down what Blizzard had to say about support reworks, and we're going to talk about what characters are likely to be reworked in what way. But if you want to improve incredibly quickly, you can check out my Patreon for private coaching in the links down below, and let's get into it. Now, Blizzard is actually working on support reworks. They said this, quote, "We're discussing targeted support hero reworks, game system updates, and even some role-wide changes to improve support quality of life." Now, it is obvious that there is a support problem right now in Overwatch 2. When I first got my hands on Overwatch 2, the first thing that I did was grind each of the roles to masters to kind of test the waters a bit. And I'm going to tell you that supporting was my least favorite by far. And I was someone that played support at a high level in Overwatch 1, but because of the weakening of healing and the fact that a lot of the supports that are created are obviously still intended for Overwatch 1, they didn't perfectly make the transition. And with a higher emphasis on playmaking ability and damage ability, a lot of the supports don't naturally fit. Now, the ones that do obviously benefit greatly. Characters like Kiriko that obviously fit perfectly into an Overwatch 2 landscape. Not only are they seeing a lot of play, but they really kind of fit the mold of what Blizzard wants for a support that really does damaging the majority of the time, can heal when they need to and bail their team out, but the vast majority of the time you're not going to be spending healing. So basically there's a lot of growing pains that's happening with the support role, and I do think that unlike the other roles that naturally play into the 5v5, support naturally got hurt when you brought us down to less overall health pools, less overall bodies, weakening, healing. So a lot of these characters are not naturally getting better like the DPS and tanks did. They're actually getting worse. And we look at the tanks and they went down to 1, so they got huge crazy buffs, but the supports didn't. Most of the supports are very, very similar to how they were in Overwatch 1. So it makes sense that they actually would put things into place to buff the entire role. And they said role-wide changes to improve support quality of life. Now, to me, that screams passive. Like, at first glance, you say, okay, they're probably going to up the passive in some way. Maybe that means that they're going to have a faster self-heal. Maybe that means that it's going to trigger faster so that supports will be healed up quicker. Maybe that means that they'll increase the damage of supports and make it so that the supports can make a lot more plays and actually outplay enemy DPS and even go for pickoffs themselves. At this point, it's really unclear the direction they want to go with the support role, and I could see them going in multiple different directions. But honestly, based on Kiriko's inception, it makes sense that they like supports with damage dealing abilities and playmaking, and supports that are harder to punish, so mobility in some form or fashion. Now, this does help us a little bit when imagining what characters they're specifically going to target for reworks. I know that this is all theoretical, like we can't possibly know what characters they're talking about, but there are a couple of supports in particular that I could see not necessarily fitting perfectly into a 5v5 format that might need to be readjusted. I can see arguments to rework characters like Brig and Ana, specifically because Brig is a character that doesn't really feel like she has her place. I understand that not a lot of players want Brig to be strong, myself included, but I do think that she's a character that could be primed for a rework. Her entire kit and playstyle doesn't really fit into what Overwatch 2 is trying to become. On top of that, I don't think that mechanically she demands a ton of you, and it makes more sense to me to just rework her into something completely different altogether. If we look at like a lot of the tanks, like look at the Arista changes and how crazy well received they were, but we have Brig, who when she was first introduced into the game, she was a god, and she's gotten nerfed like 6 times since then, and she's basically like the same character, just way weaker, and now she has no stun. Like, why can't we rework this character already? She should have gotten reworked forever ago, and it makes sense that she gets reworked. And then Ana is a weird character because what's actually countering her right now is another support, Kiriko, which is weird. Ana is in like some of the worst position that she's been in a very long time, which I think that Ana is like the golden standard for support. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I am an Ana main. I love Ana and I want to play Ana, but you can't really play Ana all that much right now up against a great Kiriko. And it's really frustrating that a lot of your playmaking potential is being capped by that. And I think that it would make sense hypothetically to take Ana and not necessarily rework the character. I think her kit makes a lot of sense, but tweak tweak some of her numbers, maybe add more damage. Someone on Twitter actually put in the argument that you could add a CC to her nade, kind of like how Kiriko has a form of CC on her nade. Imagine if Ana could like yeet to the high ground, like a slight high ground with her nade, or just boop someone slightly just to disrupt them a little bit with her nade. I don't even know if she needs it. Maybe we should just bounce around Ana, but I definitely don't think that we should maintain a meta where Ana is one of the worst supports. It seems very, very strange. Now, the other supports that are kind of like the elephants in the room specifically are Mercy and Mora. So first off, let's talk about Mora before we get into the really controversial one. So Mora is a character that I think in some ways fits Overwatch 2, but in other ways does not. She's very, very strange in that regard. I think that overall, she's a character that can be pretty frustrating for lower ranked players to deal with because she's a character that doesn't require aim and, you know, you have to hit your shots consistently to deal with her. But she really scales off very, very fast as you start to climb the ranks. And I think that the flexibility of her being able to be someone that heals and someone that makes plays and someone that gets kills, I think that's really what Blizzard is going for. So I think that she's not likely to get a rework. Maybe some number tweaking here and there, but it doesn't seem like that would be the target of the reworks. But Mercy is a kind of like a different animal entirely. It's strange because Mercy is a support that was supposed to be terrible going into Overwatch 2 because the nature of the game, it didn't really make a lot of sense to have a support that can't contribute damage to a fight in the traditional sense or playmaking in the traditional sense. But especially with the introduction of all these crazy movement techs in Overwatch 2, Mercy is shining in a way that she hasn't in the past, and she's actually pretty good. And I think that especially if you learn and master those movement techs, you can get really good at her. But there's a whole separate section of the community that says that those should not be in the game. Those are too broken. They're too hard to hit at low ranks, and even at high ranks, you just can't punish the Mercy when she moves like that. I don't necessarily think that those things are fair. I think that adding a more skill element to the character is always a good thing. But I also wonder if the Mercy that exists fits into Blizzard's plan for the future of supports. Like, would they rather, I don't know, give Mercy like a goddamn Glock that can actually deal damage? Or would they make it so maybe her ultimate is something that she could go make plays with? You could imagine a situation where every single support has, in one way or another, the ability to make plays, the ability to go proactive. And characters like Brig can't really go proactive. So to me, she's like the #1 character that would probably get reworked out of any of them. And then some passive changes support role wide. But it depends on whether or not they want to double down on the strategy that they've been incorporating, which is supports are actually playmakers, they're actually damage dealers, and then they can also heal. Or if they're going to be like, all right, we want a more return to form, so maybe healing does something extra. Healing does some sort of extra benefit. I'm really not entirely sure where they're going to go from here, but one thing I do know is that the support role needs help. It's definitely something that feels really awkward to play, and there are some supports that feel like you have a ton of agency over the game, specifically characters like Kiriko, but for the vast majority of the support role, it kind of feels like you don't have a lot of agency over the game, at least nowhere near the level of DPS, and especially tank. So I could imagine some pretty large buffs, but you tell me, which of the supports do you think actually need quality of life changes or reworks, and if you could do a buff or a change to all the supports role wide, what would it be and why? Let me know in the comments down below.